Vanity Fair has turned on them, Piers. Vanity Fair with a hit piece on her in particular, writing all about how she's a diva, which some of us have known and have been talking about, and how people can't handle working for her. Several others described taking extended breaks from work to escape scrutiny, meaning from her, exiting their job or undergoing long-term therapy after working with Meghan.
Vanity Fair just did something Meghan Markle never saw coming. The same magazine she once gushed over has now allegedly turned on her. If you want straight-to-the-point breakdowns without sugarcoating, quickly hit like and subscribe. Then let's jump right into it. According to the Vanity Fair piece, multiple sources who worked around Meghan's podcast archetypes claim she was extremely difficult to work with, far beyond normal celebrity standards. One colleague with ties to the podcast allegedly took a leave of absence after only 3 episodes and then walked away from the production company entirely. Others supposedly described taking extended breaks, going on stress leave, or even starting long-term therapy after dealing with her. Not because of the workload, but because of the pressure, scrutiny, and constant tension they say came with Meghan's involvement. The picture painted is of a boss who's always right, never wrong, and always the victim. If something went wrong, it was the team. If there was pushback, it was misunderstanding or negativity around her. One person who claims to have interacted with her professionally is quoted as saying something like, "If Meghan would just acknowledge her own shortcomings or admit where she contributed to problems, instead of staying locked in a victim role, people might see her differently." That comment is key. It suggests the real issue isn't just that she's demanding. Lots of stars are, but that, according to these sources, she never owns her part in any situation. For critics, this fits into a longer pattern they see. Public speeches about kindness and healing, while people behind the scenes say the reality is cold, sharp, and all about control. Again, these are claims and opinions from sources and commentators, not courtroom evidence, but they're the stories now shaping her public image. On paper, Meghan and Harry are all about compassion, mental health, and positivity. Their website and interviews emphasize being compassionate people, protecting mental well-being, fighting against online hate and toxic media. They've leaned hard into that branding. The couple who escaped a toxic system and now want to help others heal. But Vanity Fair reports that in their upscale neighborhood of Montecito, some locals allegedly see them in a very different light. Instead of compassionate healers, they're reportedly viewed as local villains, people who talk about privacy, yet constantly chase headline after headline. One quote in the article allegedly calls them the most entitled, disingenuous people on the planet. That's brutal. And the criticism isn't just about personality, it's about behavior. Critics say they left the UK claiming they wanted peace and quiet. No more tabloids. No more photographers. No more pressure. Yet once they landed in America, what followed? A high-profile Oprah sit-down, multi-million-dollar deals with Netflix and Spotify, magazine covers, PR campaigns, and constant media moments. So you have 2 competing images. The version they sell, a wounded couple seeking calm, privacy, and healing. The version critics push, a PR-driven duo who use the word privacy as a shield while constantly staying in the spotlight. That tension is exactly why this Vanity Fair piece hits so hard. It doesn't just criticize them, it undercuts their core brand. The Vanity Fair article doesn't exist in a vacuum. It taps into older, unresolved stories from Meghan's time in the UK that never fully went away. During her royal years, there were multiple reports and whispers of Meghan allegedly bullying palace staff, claims of people being reduced to tears, staff members saying they felt broken or traumatized, rumors that some could not wait to leave. Many of the details were buried or softened, partly because of NDAs and internal processes that were never fully made public. Officially, the whole situation was quietly handled and then faded from headlines. But in the background, that label bully never completely disappeared. Now, with Vanity Fair quoting people around her podcast saying they needed time off, long breaks, or therapy, critics are connecting the dots. In their eyes, this isn't some new behavioral pattern that suddenly appeared in California. They say, this is the same Meghan we heard about at the palace, just in a different setting with a different team. Supporters will argue that anonymous sources can't be trusted, that this is a hit job, and that a strong woman with standards is always labeled difficult. That may also be true. But perception is everything in Hollywood, and these renewed claims reinforce the same storyline her critics have been pushing for years. Another harsh takeaway from commentators: Harry and Meghan's biggest paychecks haven't come from charity work, activism, or new original projects. They've come from telling royal stories. Look at the last 5 years. The explosive Oprah interview. The emotional, highly produced Netflix docuseries. Harry's memoir Spare, filled with private details. A steady stream of interviews, profiles, and specials. Each one revolves around family drama, royal secrets, private conversations. behind-the-scenes grievances. Critics say this isn't about healing, it's about monetizing pain. And here's the problem for them. Every time the couple tries to launch something not built on royal drama, like Meghan's podcast moving into wider topics, or Harry's polo content, public interest seems to drop off dramatically. The message from the outside world appears to be, we don't care about your lifestyle projects. We only care when you spill royalty-related tea. That creates a trap. The more they rely on those stories for income and relevance, the more they're seen as profiting off the very institution they say damaged them. So when Harry wages war against UK newspapers, accusing them of ruthless intrusion and exploitation, critics say, hang on, you've done the exact same thing to your own family, just with better lighting and a Netflix contract. From that angle, he's not just a victim of intrusion. He's the one who turned his family's most private moments into worldwide content. The Vanity Fair article also dives into Harry's own ideas, and one of them has raised plenty of eyebrows. According to the piece, when brainstorming podcast concepts, Harry allegedly suggested a show where he would interview world-famous sociopaths like Vladimir Putin, Mark Zuckerberg, and other controversial figures. The supposed angle was that everyone has trauma or damage in their childhood, including Harry. But where, in his mind, he overcame it and stayed good. These other figures, he suggested, were twisted by it and became sociopaths. The punchline? Vanity Fair notes that trying to line up a whole season of top-level leaders and billionaires to sit down and publicly unpack their alleged sociopathy would be what's known in the industry as a booking challenge. Translation: this is not happening. Critics see this idea as proof of how out of touch Harry can be. It shows a belief that he can casually get the most powerful, guarded people in the world to admit dark truths on his podcast. A self-image where he's the emotionally healthy one, using his pain to understand the damaged villains of the world. To many people, it screams ego and delusion. Instead of a thoughtful, grounded exploration of trauma, it sounds like a fantasy project built around his own self-importance. And that's exactly the kind of detail that makes the Vanity Fair piece so damaging. It doesn't just criticize what they've done, it makes their judgment and instincts look deeply questionable. One of the oldest accusations thrown at Harry and Meghan is their alleged, do as I say, not as I do lifestyle. They've spoken often about climate change, carbon footprints, the importance of protecting the planet. Harry in particular has given speeches about how everyone needs to be more aware of their environmental impact. Yet at the same time, there have been multiple reports of the couple using private jets like taxis, hopping on planes owned by celebrities such as Elton John and George Clooney for short trips. The optics are terrible. Private jets are one of the worst offenders for emissions per passenger. So when you lecture the public about carbon footprints, then climb straight onto a luxury jet, critics don't forget. One especially infamous example. On the day of Meghan's reported $500,000 baby shower in New York, their account allegedly put out a message about poverty affecting people in Britain. So you have a lavish six-figure celebration with famous friends in a luxury setting, a public message on the same day about people struggling to get by. For critics, that moment summed the couple up perfectly. Grand speeches about issues, a lifestyle that appears to ignore those same concerns in practice. And that's why when people read a new piece like Vanity Fair's, it lands on top of a mountain of memories like this. The narrative of shocking hypocrisy doesn't come out of nowhere. It's been building for years. Now, Meghan is reportedly gearing up for a fresh lifestyle series. Think Martha Stewart meets California Duchess. The concept, as reported, is simple but very on-brand. Meghan cooking stylish, elevated meals, hosting glamorous guests and famous friends, filming inside a polished, multi-million-dollar Montecito mansion, presenting herself as the calm, curated center of a perfect, aspirational life. On its own, that's standard celebrity content. When one lane starts to dry up, in this case, royal revelations, Hollywood often pivots its stars into lifestyle, cooking, decor, and relatable luxury. It sells products, it builds brands, and it keeps the cameras rolling without needing fresh drama every week. But here's where the backlash kicks in: timing and reality. California has been hit by devastating wildfires. Entire neighborhoods have been wiped out. Reports talk about thousands of people, in some areas 12,000 to 14,000 and beyond, losing their homes, their stability, and in some cases everything they owned. Real families are sleeping in temporary shelters, staring at piles of ash that used to be their lives. Now put that next to what critics are seeing on screen. Meghan in a spotless designer kitchen. Expensive cookware, carefully styled flowers, perfect lighting, laughter, wine glasses, curated recipes, and cozy girl talk in a coastal mansion. The visual contrast is brutal. You've got a woman still trading off a royal title from an institution she has repeatedly slammed, happily walking audiences through luxury recipes and interiors, while regular Californians not far away are literally picking through rubble. Critics say no matter how the show is framed, healing, home, community, celebration, the optics are tone deaf. It looks less like authenticity and more like pure brand building. a carefully packaged lifestyle fantasy designed for clicks, sponsorships, and product lines. It also undercuts a lot of their earlier messaging. This is the same couple who talk about compassion, vulnerability, and helping those in pain. Yet instead of being seen on the ground, quietly helping fire victims or using their massive platform to spotlight ordinary people, the headline project is Meghan plating food for other rich people on camera. Supporters will say she's allowed to work, to reinvent herself, to step into a new lane. That's fair. But the criticism isn't that she's working. It's what she's choosing to sell, when, and how it clashes with the suffering around her. And that's why commentators believe the series will go ahead anyway. There's too much money tied to the Meghan lifestyle brand. Too many contracts, too much sunk cost, and too many people betting on her as a product. If the show really does launch as described, expect another wave of headlines like Duchess of Lifestyle, cooking show in a crisis state, from trauma stories to table settings. Because at this point, every move she makes isn't happening in a vacuum. It's happening in a state on fire, literally, and in a reputation environment that's already starting to burn. So what does all of this add up to? From Vanity Fair's reporting and the pundits reacting to it, a very clear storyline is emerging. Meghan is portrayed as a demanding, difficult boss who allegedly leaves staff burned out, distressed, or completely done with the job. Harry is painted as a man who preaches privacy and ethics while building his entire post-royal career on exposing private royal stories for big money. Together, they're cast not as compassionate healers, but as high-end hypocrites. People who talk about kindness, mental health, climate, and poverty, while living, spending, and operating in ways that critics say completely contradict those messages. None of this is a legal verdict. It's a mix of reported claims, anonymous accounts, and very loud opinions. But in the world of public image, those narratives matter just as much as official statements. The most striking sign of the shift? Even Vanity Fair, the same outlet Meghan once happily posed for, is now part of the critical chorus. That suggests this isn't just a rough week of bad press. It may be the moment when Hollywood's patience starts to wear thin and the love affair with the Sussex brand begins to cool. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think Meghan and Harry are being unfairly targeted and torn down? Or are they finally facing the consequences of years of contradictions and overexposure? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm reading them.